Well, hi, Teddy.
Hello, everybody. Leitner and Laz. That's Tim Laslavic with Uncle Teddy right here, Ted Leitner. I was laughing because that was the open when I was a kid listening to New York Yankee baseball when it was really New York Yankee baseball. That
Wow.
means before Steinbrenner and
Yeah.
that, yeah, and with Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra and Elston Howard, Roger Maris, just great teams. And Mel Allen, who I grew up with, as many people have that as they call voice of summer, and he would always say that, "Hello, everybody." He was from Alabama. I don't know if
Hello,
you,
everybody.
people heard the voice a lot when they had This Week in Baseball. Remember that show,
Oh,
that
yeah.
weekly show that was on syndication, This Week in Baseball, and that was Mel's call. I talked to him one time in my entire life. So I'm saying Mel like I know him, but I didn't. I just met him one time, and that was actually a phone conversation. And I love that. I mean, when I hear that, I think I'm 11 and I've got the new transistor radio back then in those days and listening to games, especially in your classrooms in
Yep.
October, because the
Yep.
Yankees were there every single year, it seemed like. And it was, hello, everybody. And that
Well,
was his
listen,
thing. I
Teddy.
really liked
Teddy.
it.
1960. I was a huge Pirates fan. I was raised just outside of Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the Pirates beat your Yankees in
I
seven.
wish you hadn't brought that up.
Well,
It
it's
makes me very, very sad to this day.
Bill Mazeroski hit that amazing home run.
Oh, Bill
Game
Mazeroski. And I don't want to be unkind, James, but a lot of people in baseball during the time that I was still in baseball thought that, no offense, Mazeroski was a marvelous glove man at second base. He could turn the double play as well as anybody. But he was a 260 hitter. And he
I
had
know.
one famous home run that beat the Yankees. We didn't call it walk-offs in 1960, but that's what he did.
Good
And
point.
many people to this day will grumble and gritch and moan that, no offense, because he's not here anymore, but Mazeroski did not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame and was not voted in the Hall of Fame. It was one of the Veterans Committee, as it was constituted then, that liked him and thought he had, a big name on a golden franchise of great history, going back to Ralph Kiner and all those great players and the Lightning and Lumber Company with Pittsburgh. But I agreed with him. He was not a Hall of Fame player.
Okay. The moment that he had in the spotlight qualified him for special attention. His long career, his excellent play at second base, amazing fielder. He was an amazing fielder, and I think that gets overlooked sometimes. And so I will disagree. Of course, I'm a
Okay.
Pittsburgh native.
And we didn't practice this. I always think that when I see shows or listen to radio shows, and it's two guys or two women, and one's taking point A, the other's
Yeah,
at point B, like on Point Counterpoint. Remember on CBS years ago at the end of 60 Minutes, I think it was Point
yeah.
Counterpoint
Well,
with two people,
I
and
will
then
say it's great.
Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live did their parody of that with Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin, and it was one of the greatest moments when they did that with their takeoff of Point Counterpoint, and Jane Curtin would go first, and then Dan Aykroyd would answer and say, "Jane, you ignorant slut."
Yes,
Remember that?
oh, of course. So
You
okay,
don't know what you're talking about, you ignorant slut. First of all, second of all, and third of all, that was based on the CBS version of that, of Point Counterpoint. And that's when, I might add, that's when there was a CBS News. As
oh,
far as I'm concerned, there is no longer CBS News. They're whores, they're liars, they are not in sync with the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. They are owned by a friend of and a big donor of Donald Trump, and they have repeatedly killed what they considered negative stories about Trump. And that's because the Ellisons, Larry and his son David, bought Paramount, which owns CBS. Now they're trying to buy CNN. So the idea, as once again Scott Pelley, who retired, who was let, did he just, he retired. He didn't retire, he quit at CBS from 60 Minutes, long time, several decade guy. But Pelley made the comment, it's not the first time, you cannot have democracy without a free press. It's
amen.
impossible.
Okay,
Impossible.
Teddy.
And we're losing it because these rich billionaire right-wing friends of the people in power are covering up stories, keeping them from the public, to promote this lawlessness, the criminality in the government, and the Ellisons are front and center on that. That's why CBS has told their people, no anti-Trump stuff. That's done. No more of that stuff. And that's as un-American as you can get.
Scary times.
Mazeroski.
Wait a second. You jumped from 1960 to the present day. I want to go back to 1960 for a moment because you scare the heck out of me with your present day stuff. I am in a Catholic school, right? And I had a nun in whatever grade it was, 6th grade, I don't know. And she would let us bring our transistor radios in to listen to the World Series. Now, there was some kids there who didn't care, but we could have this little earpiece and we could listen to the game. And I remember leaving school about the time Mazeroski get the home run. By the time I got home, the whole city was celebrating. It was an incredible event for an 8 or 9 year old. Can you imagine? It was like we beat the Yankees, and it was like it's a fairy tale. We did it with a walk-off home run by one of the nicest guys in baseball at the time. Anyway, I told you the Maz story. He was out here for something a couple years later, and I had a picture of him hitting the home run. Right? I've told you this story, haven't I? It's his swing is just about finished. It's finished, and the ball you can see it's over second base. And I was gifted this by somebody, and I made a couple copies because I heard Maz was going to be in town. So I waited around till after the press conference, and I said, Bill, I'm really not supposed to do this. I'm with whatever station, right, channel 8 at the time. And but I was a kid with the home run, and I have some pictures. Could you sign one for me? And I brought one for you if you'd like it. He said, "Oh yeah, that's a nice picture. I have plenty of those. Let me sign both of them. Give one to a friend. Isn't that nice?" So
nice. Really nice. And I'm probably forgetting a series in World Series history, but I can't think of one with a more lopsided competition where the Yankees won one game 10-0, another game 16-3. This is 1960. Jim's talking about for the Pirate boy here, the Pennsylvania boy, and I don't know of any team that was picked to do nothing. That clearly they were not the New York Yankee team of 60, or as it turned out, 61, which set the home run record when Maris hit 61. Mantle hit 54 before he missed the rest of the season with that abscess in his hip. But that, to me, in terms of a 7-game upset, that has to be it. Nobody thought the Pirates had any chance. I do remember Mickey Mantle saying later in interviews he sat on that bench after the home run, stunned, and cried for 30 minutes. He had never occurred to the Yankees that the Pirates could beat him. But that's part of what sports is great. That's why they play the games. It's not played on paper. Anything can happen, and you can see things you've never happened before in baseball, in an individual game and in a 7-game series. And that's exactly what they did. I recall when Ohtani pitched and hit those 3 home runs in the World Series last year, and Rick Monday called me. Former Padre broadcaster, former player, now Dodger broadcaster for a long time. And he said, see, it's another example. You go to the ball game, whether it's a fan or broadcaster, and you think you might see something you'll never see again or you've never seen in your life. And he said, this Ohtani guy is unbelievable, and I will never see anything like I just saw tonight here in Dodger Stadium.
That's so true. I mean, they play how many games? 160 games, whatever it is. And there are how many teams? All these teams, all these games. And invariably, something happens you've never seen before. If you go to enough games, you'll sit there thinking, I've never seen that before. That's really incredible. But that was a big time in Pittsburgh, Ted. Big time in Pittsburgh. All right.
I know. And what makes me sad? I was with at a bank before I came here. And my banker is from New Jersey, but he's always been a Pirate fan, big time Pirate fan. And I asked him, because the Pirates are the best they've been in several years. They've got several injured guys, but Skeens is just off the chart. A couple of really good pitchers. And I asked him, because I used to follow, when I was in baseball, I checked every box score in every newspaper every day, every game, to look at everything, including attendance, you name it. And So I'm not doing that now because I'm not in baseball. But I asked him, are they drawing? And he said, well, yeah, they have 30,000 for this game. But a lot of times it's, still 10,000, 12,000, 15,000. People are not really buying in and believing that this is it. Well, I'm thinking, if your team, which is glorious, like Jim talked about, I'm not just saying that because of that, a glorious, glorious history of players, that played there. And okay, so they're down, and they had a nice window a few years ago, and that window's closed. But when you start winning like this and you're better, and it's in Pittsburgh. I mean, there's not great competition in season, and it's not the Pens in terms of what an NHL ticket costs. It's not the Steelers and what an NFL ticket costs. And there's 81 dates. So I'm amazed that they haven't really built the momentum and bought in that, just on the excitement alone. They may not get to the playoffs. It may not be for real, but I'm going to enjoy this while I can. And that doesn't seem to be happening. I think that's a mistake.
It is.
I think that's
it's a good ballpark in a good part of town, plenty of parking, transportation, easy to get to, which reminds me of Forbes Field, which kind of was not easy to get to from where I lived. It was the bus to the trolley to walk about quarter mile to the stadium, which was adjacent to the University of Pittsburgh, which beautiful part of town, and I loved it. And Ivy covered Wallacestown. Think about some of the old stadiums. How many stadiums do you think you visited in your baseball broadcasting career? All of them, right? All the current stadiums. Well, and think about each one's character. Forbes Field was amazing. Only seated about 25,000.
Right.
But it was incredible with the Ivy and the neighborhood, and right adjacent some good restaurants.
We've all got the stories and there's nothing quite like it. I don't care. And you can take the boy out of Pennsylvania, but you can't take Pennsylvania out of the boy. And whoever you are watching this, listening, it just is the way it is. It just is. And there's nothing like your town, your stadium, your team. And that's one of the great things in not just American sports. We're seeing the World Cup, and these people are nuts for their team. So and I'm sure it goes too far, and people get crazy and they have fights. Those English fans are just brutal and have been. The hooligans, they call them. Hooligans. Never ever call somebody a hooligan? No, not in this country. But those English fans have just been some scum. Make Philadelphia fans look good at times. But it's the core part for 98% of the fandom is, I love this team. I love this city. I love the broadcasters. I love all that stuff. And I grew up, like I said, Jim had Pennsylvania. I had a city that had championships in 1956 for the New York Giants in the famous game against the Bears where they froze just ice cold in 56, and the Giants changed from cleats to sneakers at halftime. Yeah. And they went out there and suddenly they had better traction and they won the game. And those kind of stories. And 1958, when the Giants played the Baltimore Colts of Johnny Unitas and Lenny Moore and those great Colt teams. And same thing. That they call the greatest game ever played. First championship game, then went to overtime, and the Colts won it on Amici's 1-yard run in the overtime, which I did not see. And here it goes back to Jim having been in the National Football League. The blackout back then was that even the championship game of the National Football League could not be seen in the home city that was hosting the game. Now, right. you think of marketing imbeciles and think of the difference in marketing now and then. And it's just, what the hell was wrong with you people?
Well, they would sell out.
You think you're not going to sell out the National Football League championship game because what? They're waiting to watch it on television? They're going to be jumping over each other, fighting to get tickets if you put them on sale. But even then, we did not see the 1958 greatest game ever played, first overtime. I'm listening to the radio. I can see him laying in the living room, a little radio in our apartment in Yonkers, New York, and listening to the late, great Marty Glickman do the play-by-play of the Giants. And he was as good as any as I ever heard in my life, basketball, football, whatever. And broke my heart when Amici scored. But think about that. Think about how myopic and stupid the NFL was. Not that they were the only ones. and would not even allow their championship game. What's a better advertisement than to put your championship game on national television and include not just any market, but the number one market, New York, did not see that game.
Yeah, they saw the light. They came around.
Stupid.
They came around.
Yeah, and you know what they changed, the reason they had to even change that to that 72-hour rule, to where if it's sold out 72 hours in advance, then the home city Charger games, what have you, and the seat guarantee became a problem in terms of the guarantee. And is it really a guarantee? Is it really sold out? It'll be on television on Sunday. That's because when the Redskins had Riggins and Sonny Jurgensen and those guys, and the senators and congressmen were saying, hey, what the hell's going on here? How come I'm not watching Sunday's game? How come it's only on radio? That's what helped the rest of us fans around the country, is that the stuffed shirts in Washington were saying, hey, I'm Senator so-and-so, Mr. Commissioner, and this is bullshit, and we're not going to put up with this. You better come up with something before, if you don't come up with something, we're going to come up with something, and the rule's going to be something you don't like. You better find something you can live with and that you like. And that was the 72-hour thing to keep Congress happy, because they wanted to see them Redskins. Yeah. So thank God the Redskins were a great thing. You know, I was going to ask you, because his name flew out of my mind as I was going to get into it. The offensive line coach who coached the Hogs in Washington, who then came here as an assistant. And his name flew out of my mind, and I shouldn't have brought it up. Someone will call in. Joe Nelson is standing by like an operator at a telephone. He'll put up with your BS and then get you lined up with a question or whatever. But the reason I bring it up, because he's one of my favorite assistant coaches of all time. And I got close with him when I was doing the Charger play-by-play. And Joe, I believe, was his first name, but he was just aces, one of my favorites ever. And he was the line coach for the so-called offensive line, the Hogs.
Joe Bugle. Joe Bugle?
Joe Bugle. Joe Bugle, way to go, Laz, way to go, kid. Yeah, I thought he was just the best. Great sense of humor. And I mean, I didn't work for the Redskins. I don't know how the players felt about him, but he was as down to earth. He reminded me of Ernie Zampese when Zamp was the offensive coordinator for Don Coryell and had no thoughts of being a head coach. I don't want to be a head coach. I just want to be with my boys. I want to coach my boys. He had no ego, removed at birth. And Zamp turned down, when you're the quarterback of Air Coryell, Dan Fouts, but when you're the mastermind calling the plays, Ernie Zampese, may he rest in peace. Now you've got job offers, man. We can get a piece of that Don Coryell and that passing tree and all that zone option routes. Let's hire Zampese and we'll have like a Don Coryell offense.
Joe Gibson.
And Zamp, we miss you, man. Joe Bugle right there. That's Joe. That's Joe Bugle.
Right.
I put him in the category. And when I say somebody's like Ernie Zampese, I can't have a higher compliment for an assistant football coach.
Zamp had such a great attitude. He didn't have an ego about it.
Nope.
He was incredibly gifted at figuring out how to dissect defenses. Yeah. And he didn't flaunt it. He didn't care for the attention. He just was happy to do his job. And he was so loyal to the head coach. It was beautiful to see. It really was. Zamp was a good man.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I miss those guys. It's a two-edged sword, You want longevity, like Dr. King said in that speech. Longevity has its place if you have a good quality of life and your brain is still there and all that stuff. But Mel Brooks was talking about this in an interview recently, because Mel Brooks is what now, 99, something like that. Wow. And so many of your friends and loved ones are gone. The loneliness, the sadness of that. And I was just 79, but there's so many. And I think, of recent vintage, of Bill Walton and people like that. And George McGinnis, who played for the 76ers when Julius Erving joined the 76ers. And I was doing television sports in Philadelphia. And I got very close to George, not as close, much closer to George McGinnis than I did Julius Erving. But I just love George. Like I love Bill Walton. And all these guys are going.
Oh, Okay.
speaking of Mel Allen, and they're gone now, and that is so hard. And you got a guy like Mel Brooks, and
I have a Bill Walton story I have to share with you real quickly.
Yeah.
I was at my office at whatever it was, Channel 7 or 8, and we did a basketball show after the NBA playoffs. And so after each game, we'd do a show. I get a call from Charlie Jones, the NBC. Have I told you the story?
The late great Charlie Jones, who I love dearly.
Charlie had that great voice. I can't do an imitation, but he had that great voice. And I knew exactly who it was as soon as I picked up the phone. He said, Jimmy, I got a favor from you.
Charlie had pipes, man. Great voice.
Yeah, you got to do something for me. I said, okay, what's that, Charlie? He said, I've been working with Bill Walton, and I think Bill's ready to join you on that NBA postgame show you do. And I said, Bill Walton? He said, yeah. As you know, Bill had a stutter. And Charlie said, I've been working with him, and he's been working with some other people, and he's ready to go. He just needs some repetitions, and you're the guy to help out with the repetitions. On Channel 7's NBA Sports, Charlie said, yes. I said, happily. Are you kidding? Bill Walton? Heck yeah. So Bill came, and we worked together for a couple of years, and then his career took off, obviously. But Charlie was such a good guy that helped Bill through a difficult.
Yep. And I'll tell you how that happened. Bill, who I had met, in 1976 and 77 when I was working in Philadelphia, and Charlie Jones. Look at Charlie Jones. Man, on the left. What a voice. He was the original voice of the American Football League with Armanis and Charlie Toller and all those great players, and had a great career. Charlie lived here in La Jolla for like 30 years. He was my all-time hero. He would go and live in La Jolla, and then around Wednesday or Thursday, the scheduler would call him from NBC in New York and say, Charlie, you're going to do the Jets against whomever, and your airline ticket's waiting for you. He'd go to the airport here in San Diego. He'd go do his game, and he'd get done. He'd get transportation back to whatever airport. He'd come back to San Diego. He'd drive to La Jolla, and that was it. It's like us now. We work 1 hour a week.
So Charlie
bums. We're such retired friggin' bums, James. But that was Charlie for like 30 years, and I just envied him. He was making about $200,000 or more to do that one football game. And then when they were in the Olympics, there's one of my favorite people of all time, and Jim's Don Coryell.
Absolutely.
Don Coryell of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It took a while to get there, but he got there. I only wish it was while Don was alive and could really soak it up because he deserved it. Another guy with no ego, and you know who had, I think, the most influence? A lot of us were talking to writers and broadcasters when they would come here for a Charger game or even at a Padre game. You find out a guy's a pro football voter. You talk to him and say, what's the deal with Coryell, man? I mean, this guy changed. It's the ones who have impact. And other people who had been coaches without the success of Don, but then they became broadcasters. And Tony Dungy and John Madden come to mind. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Like I said, Mazeroski as a player should not have been, in my opinion. But they waited and waited and waited and waited. It's the ones who have great impact, not just become broadcasters, but impact on the game. Who had a bigger impact on the American passing game than first Sid Gilman, and then Don Coryell took Sid's basic premises and developed the hell out of it to what we had as Air Coryell. Nobody ever saw anything like it.
And then farther down the road,
St. Louis with those guys, Oz Hakeem and those guys. But it just was a shame that Don could not be here to enjoy that moment, and should have been. But the guy that started, it doesn't matter about nobody's like me doing it. What I thought put him over the top was the campaigning done by Dan Fouts. Dan is doing Monday Night Football. Dan is mentioning it on Monday Night Football. Dan's talking to all the people he sees at Monday Night Football, at their luncheons and their dinners and all that stuff, when he's working with Dennis Miller and so forth. And I think that was the final push that got Coach Coryell in the Hall of Fame. Dan, thank you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Well, the push that got Dan Fouts into the Hall of Fame was Don Coryell. Because Don came to be the coach, and he opened up that offense. And Dan was smart enough and gifted enough to figure it out and execute it. That was not a simple offense to learn. Dan Dan has a terrific gray matter, and he was able to digest and execute like nobody else. A remarkable career, and so he understood what the magic of Don, and Don understood the magic of Dan. That was a combination there.
Yeah, and that was more because Dan was really good, and Dan was, like Jim says, brilliant, and that matters also. And suddenly he's got Don Coryell's system.
Yeah.
And people want to badmouth Dan will say, "Well, yeah, it was all the Coryell system." No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. You know what else helped?
Not everybody could run that system and do the things that Dan Fouts did. So it was symbiotic. It was a relationship where Dan helped Don and Don helped Dan, and it all came out as Air Coryell, and we got to watch it.
We got to watch it, and Charlie Joyner's in the Hall of Fame because of it. Kellen Winslow, he was a raw product. Kellen was raw when he got out of Missouri, and they made him into a Hall of Fame tight end. He worked hard at it too, though. But Kellen was one of the most incredible tight ends ever. And other people, Wes Chandler, on and on and on. The talented receivers who were just better because they were playing in Don's system. And Dan will tell you that too. That system helped him.
What a team!
Great success he had.
What a team! What a team! Masick. No, not Masick. Mookie Wilkerson, Doug Wilkerson, Russ Washington. We've lost both those guys. I hate to make this into a memorial thing like at the end of the Oscars, the people we've lost this year, because we didn't lose them this year. It's been longer than that. But a couple of those guys in the offensive line, and I never asked Dan this, and I haven't seen Dan for years, but those guys told me many times when they would get the ball, by whatever means, and they would get in the huddle, and their offensive line's bent over. Dan's looking at them, ready to call plays, because those plays were not coming in from the sidelines. Like all these quarterbacks, not even Brady and all those guys, those plays were called by coaches upstairs and on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Back in Dan Fouts' day, in those days, those quarterbacks were calling plays. Add that responsibility and ask Jim how much you have to know Don's system and Ernie Zampisi's system, that you're actually calling almost every damn play. So there's 14. There's the beard.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Let me point out.
I love that team. I love that team. I love those teams. I love those players.
There's the offensive line. You got Ed White, Donnie Masick, Billy.
Yeah.
That was a good offensive line.
What an offensive line. Shields was the left tackle.
Big man.
Big Rue was the right tackle. Wilkerson at right guard. Masick at center. Oh, God. Kellen Winslow at tight end.
Eric
I can see him dropping. I can see him on a 5-step drop back right now.
Yeah.
The beard.
The tight end position, you had Kellen, you had Eric Sievers, and Pete Holohan. I mean, you had three talented tight ends who all had careers that lasted 10, 15 years. And they were all together on that offense. And it just wasn't the receivers, Wes Chandler and Charlie Joyner and on and on. It was the tight ends, and it was that offensive line that protected them. And it was the quick thinking of Dan Fouts.
The memories are just, the older I get, the more it's amazing. The older I get, I mean, I cry because it's Tuesday, and I cry because it's Wednesday. I got to stop this. It's like that line from The Odd Couple where Walter Matthau tells Jack Lemmon, as Felix, you can't go around crying all the time. It gets on people's nerves. That's becoming me. Jim, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. No. I'm talking about Jerry Coleman last week, and I can't stop crying when I'm talking about him saving those two airmen who were shot down, and he's waiting, and he's circling in his plane, waiting for the PBY, the flying boat, to come rescue them. And he's got every intention, if a Japanese patrol comes on, he's locked and loaded his machine guns. He's going to take them on to keep the Japanese patrol away from those two airmen who get to live and go back to the States. And I get so emotional. And I just saw that picture of Dan, and Dan and I never got along particularly well. And none of the players got along with me and my big mouth particularly well, especially Kellen. I remember when Kellen was a rookie, I think it was when I did Aztec football, and they opened at the University of Missouri. So I said something about Missouri on the air, on Channel 8, and Kellen, of course, went to Missouri. And he was on a talk show a couple of days later or whatever. Just damn Leitner. Who the hell is he talking about Missouri Tigers? He doesn't know shit. So Kevin and I got off to a really bad start. And then we got,
Wait
I saw him a few years ago.
Now, didn't Missouri have that great journalism school? And didn't our news director, Jim Holtzman, go to Missouri? Am I mistaken? And so you were insulting a lot of people who love Missouri. And a lot of them were your coworkers. We had 3 or 4 people who went to Missouri. Anyway, go ahead.
I know, it was that way. I had a big mouth. I was opinionated. I still am. And the players would always give it that, who the hell is this guy? As Hank Bauer said, when did you ever put a jock on? I said, hey, I played high school football, Hank, and I was all city in New York. That's a pretty big area with a lot of good players. Were we like Pennsylvania players like Jim? No. Texas, Oklahoma? Hell no. California? No. But we were a decent level of football. And I was a co-captain voted by my players and my teammates. And I made all city first team on defense at the defensive end at 6 foot, 190 pounds. So that was my answer to Hank. But no, I'm not like you guys. I can't play like you guys. But they always do that. You don't know shit. You don't even know how to put a jock on. And when Hank told me that, the story, the line I had in my mind was when Bob Uecker, another guy I missed desperately, the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers and a former catcher and became a stand-up comedian and was on Carson like 140 times on the Carson show because Carson thought Uecker with that deadpan delivery was so great. And that's when Uecker used that line, speaking of athletic supporters. And in fact, he used it in his Hall of Fame speech. When Uecker was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, his speech is so great that when the Brewers put out their media guides every year, they printed it word for word in the media guide for those who wanted to read it. Because people always ask, because the Hall of Famers, are behind Uecker. He's and the Hall of Famers are spitting up. They are laughing so hard. And one of the lines was that Uecker said he was called up, and Bertie Tebbetts, the late Bertie Tebbetts, was the manager of the Milwaukee Braves that Uecker played for. So Uecker says, I get called up, I come out, I get dressed, I come out, and Bertie Tebbetts, the skipper, comes up to me and says, you ready? I say, yeah, I'm ready. And Bertie says, you nervous? No, I'm not nervous. And he steps to me and says, well, kid, you may not be nervous, but here in the major leagues, we wear those jocks on the inside. That's Uecker. That's Uecker. And we had some bad, really, as you know, way back when, Jerry and I had some bad Padre teams. So I never had a conversation with Uecker in the 40 years I knew him where I didn't laugh. And that's a gift. Yeah. That's a gift. And so I get a game, I get it done, and I'm walking out to the bus. It was getaway day. I got to get the bus. We're going to the airport. Series is over. And I hear Uecker talking behind me. And I'm going to the bathroom, which is on the way. It's on the right before you get out in the concourse. And I hear Uecker say, Teddy, where are you going? Keep in mind, my bad Padre teams. Where are you going? And I say, Uecker, I'm going to take a Padre. see, there's my boy. There's Bob Uecker. Oh my God, he was so funny.
Yeah,
the players loved him because he made them laugh. His fellow broadcasters were so honored to just be with him. And he told me a line one time that he had used after Petco opened. They came in, and it was a bad game, blowout, and he was bored, and he got to a pause. He was on radio, I don't think. I think it was radio, not TV. And he pauses, and he says, you heard this beautiful Petco Park. They got that park at the park out there in center field. And out in left field, they have this Western Metal Supply Company building. That was built, and after it was built, it produced the ball bearings for the wagons for the Union Army during the Civil War. That was the pitch, foul back out of play. And then he goes on. And then he comes back about 2 minutes later in the next batter, and he says, by the way, that story about the Union Army and the ball bearings, of course, I totally made it up. That was Euchre. I just loved him. And I told him toward the end there when I knew that I was going to leave and he was 90 or whatever. And I went to him before a game and I said, Euchre, I've never had a conversation where you didn't make me laugh. Thank you. Thank you. And that was the great Bob Euchre. He was just so terrific.
Yeah. Baseball players, but announcers here in this town, Jerry Coleman and Soups Campbell and Mel Proctor did a nice job. Ted Leitner was pretty good too. And I was a big fan of Ted Leitner on the baseball broadcast. You prove that every week here, but I knew that going in.
That's such a great time.
But doing the baseball
such a great time.
As opposed to doing the football, two different animals. I mean, baseball, it's like a monologue. In football, it's like a running description of what's going on. Baseball, you have so much time. Pitches between batters, between visits to the mound, all kinds of stuff. But you're able to do both. And that's a real gift.
It's wonderful. A gift from God. It was just absolutely amazing and a long run and working with great people, present company included.
Yeah.
It was simply amazing. Let me, by the way, I have my hearing aids in. I only say that because I'm old and I can't hear for shit. But I want to, talk about my hearing aids. Then I want to play for you if you want to get something ready that you're going to use to record this, because people have asked the last 2 weeks, and quite frankly, last week I forgot. It wasn't our producer, Joe. It was me. I forgot. Now Joe reminded me today. Get that Tony Gwynn laugh that you got, where Tony was doing a session at the radio station for his car dealer, and during that he started chatting, and he started to laugh, the famous Tony Gwynn laugh. I used it when I spoke at his memorial at Petco Park and put it up to the microphone. And the thing is, I got to remind myself, not that you care about this logistical stuff, but everything that's said now by Jim and by me and by Joe goes right into my hearing aids. So when I play Tony's laugh, before I do that, I got to take them out and turn them off, or you won't be able to hear them at home or wherever you are watching this. So first, let me tell you about the hearing aids. They're called Starkey. They are the best by so far that I've ever tried. And I've tried, I won't name any brands and knock anybody, because you don't have to knock anybody to make Starkey sound great and be great. I got mine early on. They were Belltone here in San Diego. So keep that in mind. And remember to go to BelltoneLaMesa@gmail.com. BelltoneLaMesa@gmail.com. They've kept the old website, but they've gone to Starkey. The first time I put the Starkeys in versus the ones I had before, it was like, good God, it's a symphony orchestra. It's amazing. And this is with an app from Starkey that will be on your phone, and you'll be able to control your volume. You'll be able to set it to personal when you're just talking to someone. You can set it to restaurant. In the restaurant, it will cut the ambient noise from the other tables so you can hear the voices of the people at your table. A miracle. You can set it for television if you're watching television, and it will adjust to the sound of a television with greater volume to where it won't blow your ears out, but it will take it down to the perfect level. It is just adjustable, as I said, and terrific. And I know that Jason Karpadakis, who is a friend of mine, so mea culpa, I'm not just talking about the company, he is a friend of mine, and he is an advertiser on this program, and I want you to go see him for a free, no obligation, and hear what he has to say. And let me know how it works out. Let me know how it works out, because I know you'll be satisfied. If I wasn't using it, I wouldn't tell you to use it. If I wasn't completely satisfied, I would never tell you to do that. Now, let me take this out. Let it go, Jim. Let it go.
Now I can talk.
all the blue stuff I could never do on radio or television, and all the bad words. The best part of a podcast is saying any damn thing you want to say. So I take these and I shut them off, and now I go to my email and go to the Tony Gwynn advertising session. I'll warn you, it's very short. Please let me find it. Please let me find it. No, it reset. I got to look for it again. I had it, and now I have to look for it again.
During rehearsals.
Damn it. Oh, man, I am as organized as a mob. I should have transferred to something else. As Mike Myers used to say, talk among yourselves. Talk among yourselves. Oh, man, it's from years and years and years and years ago. I thought it would stay there because it did several times, and now I've lost the damn thing. I don't want to make you wait till next week. So I'm still going to go and go and go and go. Gosh darn it. Anything else you want to talk about, Jim, while I'm doing this?
No.
Feel free. And if you want to talk about the World Cup, an amazing comeback, down 1-0 and 2 late goals by Argentina, the defending champions of 4 years ago. And they won, and they will play Spain on Sunday. Come on.
Yeah, Argentina was
Messi did not score.
Messi
did not score. I am so disappointed. I beg your pardon, and I apologize. I should have known this damn thing would reset to the top of the emails.
I have to tell you, this would.
And one other question to Joe.
Just to tune in.
I would put this up to the microphone at the memorial for Tony. Where would I put this to get the best sound for this?
Right up against your computer.
What?
Comments to the show.
I can't hear you. Obviously, I can't hear you. I took my hearing aids out.
We had a breakthrough today on soccer.
Oh, what? This
pisses
me off so much. Nope, wrong one. Wrong one. Gosh. Dang it.
Jim, do you mind reading the comment to the show right there on the screen?
I got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
Leitner, Jim Laslavic.
There's 7 cuts.
Broadcast each
And I
day.
looked
You
at
are my biggest broadcasting and sports heroes.
the
Thank
big
you.
one today. Okay,
Nice to hear from you.
we'll say it again. Joe, where the hell do I hold it?
Hold on.
So they can hear it. You talk about organized, huh? Is this an organized show? Are we professionals?
I'm laughing so hard.
These guys are professionals. I'm the rookie. I'm the schmuck that, from a technology standpoint, if I could turn my hearing aids off, that's a big accomplishment for me because.
Point it right here. See what happens.
Point it where?
At the computer. Play.
Well, the speaker's down here, right? On an iPhone? That's the important thing, where the speaker is. Let me do it, and I'll replay it if you don't get it.
Okay.
So if I rattle through this, we can get.
I'm telling you, if you don't laugh when you hear that, the greatest laugh, they talk about a constant laugh there. They call it birds on the wing. It sounds like birds taking flight.
Yeah.
And this is as close to birds on the wing as I have. And I got to hear this for exactly 20 years on the charter planes.
Yeah.
And the players would sit in a different section. And that's, what that picture is? If I'm not plugging my book, but that picture of me comes from this picture of interviewing Tony at halftime of an Aztec basketball game.
Nice.
And then when they needed a cover photo for my book called TED Talks, then they cut out Tony and used just me, but that's where it came from, an interview with T at halftime. Speaking of guys you miss, good God. Let me play that a few more times for you if you want to get your phone ready to get it on the audio app or what have you. And if you don't get it, let us know. We'll do it again next week, and I'll have it prepared just before the show, so it'll be ready. Here comes T.
So if I rattle through this, we can get.
See, because Anthony to me sounds like him, but the laugh is not like that. Not quite. It's not as
his son Anthony.
Bassy, whatever you want to call it, brassy. But
I have a word for it. I've been thinking about that. His laugh was so sincere. It was from his soul. He was laughing with you in a sincere appreciation for what it is you had just expressed. He paid attention to you. He listened to you. He talked with you. He was just one of a kind. One of a kind.
And you know where you hear the most laugh? If you go down to the clubhouse, T had moved his seat in the old stadium. He never played in the new one. He moved his seat. One more time. Here it comes. Tony.
So if I rattle through this, we can.
Oh, man. I love you, T.
Yep. Amen.
And I always will. I'm going to make
Amen.
my hearing aids work again so I can hear. And
There you go, Ted.
Tony, in moving, he moved his locker so he'd be close. Look at that handsome guy. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
One of the postseason ceremonies at Tony's last season that I was so proud to MC. And so he moved his locker so he'd be next to Ricky. Because as Tony said, I like Ricky, I love Ricky, but Ricky is the unintentionally, or to actually put it in, English, the most unintentionally funny person I've ever heard, Tony would say. When he would say all this stuff. And
there's another more unkind way to say that. You know that. But Tony found the kindest way to say.
Yeah. But I also, I don't know. This is what happens when you're, and I'm older than Jim. A lot of times you tell a story, but you have to put a disclaimer at the top because you do forget. So it's like, I may have told him the story before. I don't know. So I'm going to start using that. Jim, you can use that if you want to, because I really don't. And rambling for an hour with Jim, this is our eighth show, 8 weeks of this stuff
right?
Piled higher and deeper. That Ricky was hilarious. But I also mentioned I was flying after we both retired, and I was on a Southwest plane, and he was going back to Oakland, and I was going whatever. And he was across the aisle. He never remembered names. He couldn't remember his teammates' names. He could not. I remember Ryan Klesko told me that we were down a run, and as a runner at third, Klesko's the runner. And one of the few names that Ricky knew was Tony Gwynn. So he's yelling at Klesko, drive me in, T! Drive me in! And Ryan was going, what the hell's he talking to? Well, he's not on deck. And I'm batting. Drive me in, T. He doesn't think I'm Tony Gwynn, does he? That was Ricky. But I look over and our eyes meet, and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" I know he's not going to know my name, and that's okay. And I said, "Where are you going?" And he said, I'm going to a college up in Oakland where I grew up, and I'm auditing a class, and which means you're not enrolled, but the teacher allows you to come in and do the work so you can learn. I said, "What class is it?" And he said, it's a speech class, speech and communications, because I got to give my induction speech in the Hall of Fame when I go in at the end of July, and I don't want to screw it up. I want to make people proud of me. And I was so proud of him. And I thought, Rick, you were such a professional when you played. And I know a lot of people bitched about when he would pick. Remember when he hit a home run, he knew it was gone, and he'd start running sideways, and he'd pick at his jersey, and opposing players back then were just boiling. So he's one of those guys the opposing players hated, but his teammates loved him, and they really did.
That was Ricky being Ricky.
This is just, and talking to third person. Kellen used to do some of that. Kellen would talk about, hey, Kellen's got to go out there and then do this and do that. When Kellen Winslow played for the Chargers, he did that third person stuff, and Ricky would always say, "No, that's just Ricky being Ricky." And Ricky's got to get on. Ricky gets on.
When you like to, Ricky,
that's so much.
Third person. Teddy being Teddy. We said it a lot of times. It's just Teddy being Teddy.
And he mentioned when he was playing for the Mets after the second time with the Padres, he played for the Mets, and he got obviously they play out in Queens. We play out in Queens, and look at that. Way to go, Joe. Way to go, producer Joe. Tony Gwynn and Ricky Henderson. Look at the talent right there. Look at the talent by those two close friends who used to, oh gosh, laugh and laugh and laugh. And you get down there and listen to Tony laughing and Ricky talking. But man, those guys could flat out play. So after Ricky got his apartment in Manhattan, even though he had to commute to Queens for the games, he told Pat, how come you did that in Manhattan? And he said, I got an apartment and you can open my drapes and see the entire state building. And I didn't correct him. I don't think T corrected him either because they were too busy laughing. And they were just those stories. I won't go on. I won't do 9 or 10 Ricky Henderson stories, but I will tell you, man, it was so much fun. Greatest leadoff man ever, and ever is a lot of players in many, many, many years of Major League Baseball since the Cincinnati Reds in 1869. That's how long they've been playing Major League Baseball. And he was the best leadoff man with that power, get on, that speed. And when he was with the Padres, to tell Padre fans, he was not a plus defender anymore. He still had the wheels. He'd lost some speed, but he didn't get good jumps. But when he was a left fielder early for Oakland and Toronto, 5 tools: hit with power, run, throw, you name it. He had all 5. And very few did. Ricky was a great player. Rest in peace, Rick. Fans here loved you. All the teams you played loved you. That's all. Our time says what?
It says
a couple of minutes. We got a couple of minutes. I mentioned the World Cup and Argentina's win, and they play Spain now, right?
yes.
Spain beat England. I try to follow this. I don't make believe I know anything about soccer because I don't. But you know what I recognize? I was talking just with other people. I recognize, and I'm in awe of greatness. That's why I'm talking to Tony in that picture of greatness, Tony and Ricky. I don't care who it is in whatever sport, even sports I'm not a big fan of. I recognize how great Bobby Hull was, and Gordie Howe, and those kind of players in hockey, and Gretzky and all those at every single level of all those sports. I'm fascinated by greatness, even Secretariat. Once again, I don't know if I ever told you the story, but Secretariat, guys who covered him would tell me they go to the farms when he was at stud after he retired, or even when he was just prancing around in between races. And they swore he had an ego. They swore that Secretariat knew how bad he was, and knew that he was a champion.
Yeah.
The photographers would tell me that he'd see the camera, look over there from across the meadow, and they could swear he stood up taller, that those front amazing shoulders and all that muscularity that he had, the musculature, would stand up and his ears would go up, that he would see the camera, and then he would come loping over to the photographer and the reporter. It's like he knew, as in, I'm bad. Bad. I am maybe the baddest of all time. And Seabiscuit was great, and Manowar was great. And he said, but I'm Secretariat. I'm this big red. I used to love that. Where his trainer, little short African American guy, would always be leading him to the paddock, and he'd say, "Look out! Look out! Big horse coming! Big horse coming!" I love that. I love that so much. And when they did the autopsy after he died, they said the average racehorse, his heart's 8 pounds, about 8 pounds in that range. Secretariat's was 17 pounds.
Wow.
That's where it came from. Not just the musculature and the height, how many hands high he was and all that. It was the oxygenation of the blood being pumped by this huge heart. And so these other horses, and he's like, looking back and saying, come on, come on.
They might have a discovery about you like that.
Come on, we're not done yet. Come on, keep chasing me.
When you leave us, they're going to check your heart. They're going to find it's bigger than a normal heart, and it's pumping all this energy and excitement.
Yeah. And the horse in the Belmont, who was another one of those generational talents, whose name escapes me, because I'm old, but they thought that would be one hell of a race, and he winds up almost lapping him, and that was not beating some ham and egger. That was beating a great horse. That's what the movie is based on, and so forth. And the shot of his owner in shock. even Penny, even the owner of Secretariat, they expected one hell of a race between those two, and the look on her face in the stands, like, this can't be happening. That was against a great horse.
Okay, Ted,
And look at him. He's running away from everybody. That greatness in any sport absolutely fascinates me and gives me goosebumps.
let me ask you: Spain, Argentina.
Hmm?
Spain, Argentina.
I can't hear Jim very well, so yell at Jim.
World Cup final. World Cup final.
World Cup final? Oh, it's the old, like an American sport. You got to get there in the playoffs, and then you get your ass bounced out. Then you got to come back and learn how to do it, learn how to win as a franchise, as a playoff team, and then you do it. I got to think that Argentina has been there. Remember when what's his name, the coach at in Cleveland, Paul Brown. Hey, when somebody demonstrated for the first time after scoring a touchdown, it was Paul Brown that said, "Hey,
act like you've been there.
Act like you've been there before." In the end zone, one of the great quotes of all time, and so perfect. And Argentina's been there, Jim. I mean, they got to be favored. They have to be favored. I know Messi's not 25, but speaking of guys like that, Messi, and so many greats. So that would be my answer to that as we say goodbye for this week. Gosh, I'm enjoying this show. I'm trying to talk less so Jim can actually talk and not have to raise his hand like he's a little kid going 1 or 2 in grade school to the bathroom. And I'm trying to just get kind of excited and run my mouth. But I thank you for being with us.
Thank
I
you.
also to plug myself on this. I'm really having a fun time on this cameo.com, where so-called celebrities, players, coaches, retirees, what have you, in show business and sports, send messages to other people, whether it's Padre fans, Aztec fans, Charger fans, what have you. And you go to cameo.com, and I just called a woman who was having her 80th birthday, and her son, John, wanted me to call her and wish her birthday. Nice. So you have this great chance of what they call point-to-point communication, which is not broadcasting. That's to a mass audience, you hope, but point-to-point, where you can tell somebody congratulations on your retirement and congratulations on your graduation or your birthday. So I've started doing that, and I just love it. So if you'd like me to do that for you, go to cameo.com. How about that for a blatant plug? Good Lord. For Joe Nelson, producer Joe, who produces this podcast as well as his sports podcast, for the great Jim Laslavic of the National Football League and NBC Sports, Uncle Teddy with you. Padres off. They're opening in Kansas City after the All-Star break. When we're with you again next week. You know what that means. If I was with him in Kansas City, Arthur Bryant's Barbecue.
Exactly.
one of the great Black-owned, African-American-owned businesses in our country, Arthur Bryant Barbecue, and there's plenty others not as good that I've been to, but Arthur Bryant's.
Always a favorite.
Kansas City Barbecue.
Always a favorite road trip.
Oh, wow. Be well. Be good to each other. And take care. Thanks.
Take care, Ted.